Breaking down the Vikings from the perspective of a former NFL General Manager of the Year. It's Jeff Diamond's Purple Report. Presented by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
Welcome to Jeff Diamond's Purple Report Thursday edition. Brought to you every Monday and Thursday during the Viking season. Although next week will be on Tuesday because of Christmas coming on Monday. So it will be a Tuesday show next week. And actually, it's Christmas on Sunday.
Christmas Eve is Sunday.
Christmas Eve Sunday. Christmas Day Monday. Our
Yep.
show is Tuesday. And then our Thursday show will be at regular time on Thursday. And we are brought to you by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers on 1500 ESPN. Available 24/7 on YouTube via links from the 1500 ESPN and Score North websites. I'm Jeff Diamond, former Vikings GM, former Tennessee Titans president. Our producer is Jason Stormer, does a great job putting the show together. And Jason, big game this Sunday, the showdown against the guys from Motown. The Detroit Lions come to town, 10-4, leading the division by 3 games. And I will say this to start us out. It's kind of a good news, bad news situation. The good news is the Vikings are in the hunt. They're in the playoff hunt. And they actually control their own destiny, amazingly, to at least keep the number 6 seed, which is really important in the playoff picture, so they don't potentially run into San Francisco, Dallas, or Philadelphia in the first round. More likely, they would face number 3 seed Detroit if Detroit wins the division. However, if the Vikings win the last 3 games, 2 of which against the Lions, and the Lions lose next week at Dallas, which is expected. Cowboys are great at home this year. All of a sudden, the Vikings can win the division, which is amazing considering all the games that they have, shall we say, blown this year, including last Sunday against Cincinnati and all the difficult losses. And you think back, if they just had a couple of those wins over the Chargers, the Bucks, the Bears, the Broncos, the Bengals last week, if they could have figured out a way to pick up a first down on the tush push, or better yet, don't even call that play.
Don't do it twice either.
Yeah, don't do it twice either, especially Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins had a bad back. He was on IR for many weeks, and you have guys barging into his back. Does that make sense? No, I think it wasn't Kevin O'Connell's finest hour as a play caller, nor was it Brian Flores' finest hour as a defensive play caller, trying to blitz Jake Browning repeatedly when Browning had a 128 rating against the blitz going into the game, as we talked about last Thursday. But now he faces a guy in Jared Goff who's not so good against the blitz. So, but it's a big game. It's a showdown game. And it's what the NFL wanted, Jason, when they scheduled the Vikings and the Lions, the 2 best teams in the division last year, to face off in 2 of the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's very rare, I think, for 2 NFC North opponents to face each other this late into the season anyway. But obviously it's working out for the NFL because they're the 2 top teams in the North this year. But I honestly can't think of more coal in a stocking than the Lions coming into US Bank Stadium and winning the NFC North on Christmas Eve.
For the first time in 30 years.
Right, I know. I mean, these people pay good money to spend part of their Christmas at US Bank Stadium, and if they have to see that, I'm going to feel pretty bad for them. But I guess you get what you pay for, but hopefully the Vikings can prevent that, and everybody can go home on Christmas happy.
Yeah, that would be a good thing. The Vikings have not been great at home this year. They're 2-4. Of course, a lot of those tough losses we talked about before, but they do have the opportunity here the next 2 weeks at home with the loud, noisy crowd that helps the pass rushers, helps Danielle Hunter, helps DJ Wanham. I think really one of the keys, and we're going to go through the keys of the game later, but one of the big keys is putting pressure on Jared Goff via the blitz, via Hunter and Wanham. Hunter, second in the league in sacks, having a fantastic year as he heads to free agency, and the Vikings can't franchise tag him, but they're going to have to find a way to re-sign him because without him, their defense would not be nearly as good as it has turned out to be this year, which has been a surprise, shall we say,
yes.
Ranked number 13 in the league. But as we kind of look at the playoff picture, And I think one of the things that kind of under the radar, that if you don't really study this closely, the Seattle Seahawks win over Philadelphia on Monday night, very damaging, I thought, to the Vikings' chances to make the playoffs, because it brought the Seahawks to 7-7 along with the Rams and the Saints. But the Vikings have a head-to-head win over the Saints. But the Rams and the Seahawks are the two teams that they have to be concerned with, and they both have very favorable schedules. Now, we're recording on Thursday. The Rams host New Orleans Thursday night, and the Vikings are going to hope for a Saints win. We'll see how that turns out. Mm-hmm. But then after that, the Rams are at the Giants, which Tommy DeVito, he beat the Packers a couple weeks ago. Maybe magic repeats in the Meadowlands, but not a great prospect there. And then they finish up at San Francisco, which I think by then the 49ers are going to have the number one seed probably wrapped up, and they could rest a bunch of starters like McCaffrey and Purdy and a whole bunch of guys. So the Seahawks are a concern. The Rams have won 4 of their last 5, and they finish up at Tennessee. That could be semi-dangerous. You never know. And then they are home against Pittsburgh, and the Steelers are kind of reeling at this point. And then they are at Arizona. It's a division game. You never know, but the Cardinals, Kyler Murray could go crazy. I think the point is that the Vikings not only may need to win these last 3 games to win the division potentially, they may need to win them just to make the playoffs. And for sure, they're going to have to win 2 games. And so, which even if they lose this week in that scenario, it could happen, because if they beat Green Bay and then all of a sudden Detroit is locked in at the number 3 seed and has already won the division, then they may rest some starters in that final game. But we'll talk about that down the road, because right now the Vikings have to be concerned with playing better. Nick Mullins has to play better. He has to be more careful with the ball. Don't throw these careless interceptions. They have to run the ball well against Detroit and set up their play-action passing game. Justin Jefferson went off on the Lions last year, had 11 catches for 223 yards the last time he faced them. To me, Jefferson, Hunter, your big guys have got to play big in these big games, and that's going to be the big thing to watch as we go forward. But let's look a little bit more closely at the Lions, Jason. And you broke down a couple of clips of the Lions last week. They had a big bounce-back win after they lost at Chicago in a game where the Bears got a lot of pressure on Goff and forced a couple interceptions. He was making mistakes, and that's going to be another key. Can Brian Flores, who has done well against Goff in the past, can he put the pressure on via the blitz or through the regular pass rush and get him discombobulated? We'll see about that. But in this particular game against Denver last week, and the Broncos came in hot, the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff were scorching, and they smoked the Broncos 42-17. They're going to come to town with some confidence. Here's Jared Goff throwing his 3rd touchdown pass of the game. Out of his 5 TD passes, 3 of them went to rookie tight end Sam Laporta.
4th and 2. Goff to the end zone. Touchdown. 3rd time to Laporta. He is putting on a show.
That's going to be a challenge for the Vikings secondary that we know has struggled, particularly at the end of ball games recently, and especially in the 4th quarter against Cincinnati in overtime against Jake Browning. Jahmyr Gibbs, a rookie first-round pick, very explosive player, has over 700 yards rushing, has 29 receptions this year. He's a threat. 47 catches this year. He's a threat in the run game and in the passing game. Here's Jahmyr Gibbs with a touchdown last week.
Gibbs is in, 1st and 10. Laporta a block. Gibbs turns the corner, and he is in for the touchdown.
He's a speedster. He's going to be tough to stop, but the Vikings' run defense has been very good this year. That's going to be a great matchup to watch. The Lions, the number 2 rushing team in the NFL, against the Vikings, the number 5 rush defense in the league. So that's going to be certainly a key to the ball game if the Vikings can be able to contain David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Ross St. Brown is their leading receiver. He's a Pro Bowl caliber player. He's having a fantastic year for Detroit. 94 catches this year, 1,175 yards, 7 touchdowns. The Vikings better find a way to either double him or get enough pressure on Goff. But it's one of the things that concerns me in this game, Jason, when you think about the Viking corners and the struggles they've had recently, especially with T. Higgins last week, matching him up with St. Brown. That's going to be a difficulty in this game, I think.
Yeah, and I think Byron Murphy Jr. graded out as like the best defensive player technically for the Vikings on PFF for that week. I think his score was like an 85 or an 86. And I know Caleb Heavens had the interception as well. It was probably one of the easiest interceptions a cornerback could ask for, honestly. Browning threw it right to him. No other Bengals receiver was anywhere nearby. But otherwise, I thought him and Blackman struggled pretty decently. Again, that's a really strong receiving core that they have in Cincinnati. But still, it was a pretty strong regression from what we've seen in the previous 3 weeks against the Broncos, the Bears, and the Raiders. I mean, this defense, it was inevitable that it was going to come back down to earth a little bit. I think it came back down to earth in a bigger way than we expected, especially with kind of blowing that fourth quarter lead. But still, they have a chance to bounce back against Detroit, but this offense is just humming right now for the Lions. It looked like it was maybe struggling for a second there, but I mean, the Denver defense did a pretty good job to the Vikings offense, and Denver was able to put 40 points on them. So
yeah, Detroit did. Yeah. And that's, as we said, a challenge. And Murphy is one of the injured players this week for the Vikings, battling a knee injury, missed practice, along with Alexander Madison. Now, we know Ty Chandler should be the main guy in the running game. There's little doubt about that at this point. Mm-hmm. Brian O'Neill has not been practicing this week. That's a concern going into this game because he would be going against Aiden Hutchinson, even though O'Neill did struggle in a couple of recent starts. But if Quisenberry gets the start, they're going to have to make sure they double Aiden Hutchinson a lot. He's their leading sacker with 6.5 sacks. Josh Oliver is going to have to get a lot of activity on that right side to help out Quisenberry, or even if it's O'Neill, because O'Neill may be playing on a gimpy ankle. Harrison Phillips has been battling a back injury. He's a real important game in the run defense. The Vikings are more banged up than the Lions going into this game, and we'll see how that all plays out. But let's look at a defensive play, and we talk about the blitz on Jared Goff, and he has a 90 rating against the blitz this year. Not great. No. And he's struggled against Flores in 2 previous games where he's only completed 54% of his passes. Flores has got several interceptions, 3 interceptions, a couple lost fumbles on Goff in those games with New England and Miami. Now, of course, a different team, different situation, but it's certainly going to be on Goff's radar going into this game that he struggled against Brian Flores' defense, and he's been watching them closely. And here's an example of what the Bears were able to do on the blitz against Goff, and this is a sack by a former Viking, Yannick Ngakoue, when the Bears upset the Lions a couple weeks ago.
He and DJ Moore, 2 of the best in terms of contested catches in the NFL this year. Bears bring a blitz, and they get to Goff. It's Yannick Ngakoue.
And that's what the Vikings need to try to copy and have Danielle Hunter and DJ Wanham crashing down, Josh Metellus, Harrison Smith on the blitz. Harrison hasn't made a lot of plays recently. Maybe this is the kind of week that would be good for him to have a couple picks or sacks or do something. And Josh Metellus, of course, has been a good blitzer too. Here's what the Vikings need more of, Jason. And I'm talking about Justin Jefferson. As I said, you need your big guys, your best players to come through in big games. This is a big game, and this is their best player. Here's Jefferson last week with one of those tough catches, and Nick Mullins needs to be a little more accurate this week, by the way.
You going to buy that?
Nope. He didn't have the right dance moves, probably.
Mullins, plenty of time, fires downfield, and it is caught. Jefferson again between 2 defenders and letting them know.
And that's JJ doing his thing. And I know he's cranked up for this week, and he talked today in his media session that he had a career day against the Lions last year with that 223-yard day in Detroit. So he can play against them. He's sure to draw double coverage, which is going to help ex-Lion TJ Hockenson, and Jordan Addison had 2 touchdown catches last week. Talking about Danielle Hunter having a career best season, going to have to be a major priority to re-sign in this offseason. He's proven to stay healthy the last 2 years. 15.5 sacks, as I said, second in the league. And here's Danielle with a sack of Browning last week.
2nd and 10. Browning flushed and gets nailed. And boy, do I mean nailed by Danielle Hunter back at the 20.
Would have been good if he got the ball out in that hit.
Man, ouch.
That was an ouch.
Yeah.
That was a great hit. And we mentioned before Ty Chandler. He's going to be a key to this game, I think. Vikings need to run the ball, and the Lions are better against the rush. They're 8th ranked in the league against the rush, 18th against the pass. But the Vikings need to have a decent running game in order to set up that play-action game that O'Connell likes so much, and which is really important to get the ball downfield to the receivers. But Chandler had a career day against Cincinnati, and he needs to keep it going, at least be productive in this game. And here's Ty Chandler on a big 30-yard run last week.
It's Chandler again. He's got a hole inside the 20, the 10, and Chandler down to the goal line as he is dragged down at the 1-yard line.
And that's the burst that Ty Chandler brings, the speed that Madison cannot bring. I thought Alex had a really good game in Vegas, ran hard, tough running, and they still need him as a number 2 back, I think. Kind of the role he had with Dalvin Cook here. Mm-hmm. But Ty Chandler should be the main guy getting the most touches, and he's also the best in the passing game and run a few screens and so forth. Now, before we get to a few of our interviews and hear from the head coach and some of the players in advance of this game, let's talk about our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers. There are trucks. Then there's the truck, GMC Sierra, with available features like the V8 engine, the ultimate luxury interior, and, of course, the available world's first 6-function multi-pro tailgate. GMC Sierra, not just any truck, the truck. GMC's continued commitment to professional-grade engineering is on full display at your local GMC dealer. Come take a test drive today and see for yourself. We are professional-grade GMC. Just in time for the holidays, well-qualified buyers get 0.9% APR on 2023 Sierra light-duty models, plus no monthly payments for 90 days. See your local GMC dealer today. Length of contract limited, deferred monthly payments for 90 days. Excludes residents of Pennsylvania. Must finance with GM Financial. Down payment required at signing, if applicable. Finance charges accrue from data financing. Some customers will not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 1/2/24. So, Jason, let's hear from Kevin O'Connell. I wasn't thrilled with Kevin's play calling at the end of the game in an overtime against the Bengals. Did not like the 2 quarterback sneaks. You mentioned that too. Ty Chandler should have got the call on one of those plays. He's got the burst outside. You got a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle in Christian Darrisaw. Here's what I'm saying. When the 49ers need a big yard, who's Christian McCaffrey running behind? Trent Williams on the left side. I think that
not Brandon Powell, that's for sure.
And not having Brandon Powell as the pusher on the quarterback sneak.
Can we at least get like CJ Ham back there? Somebody just a
Josh
little bit
Oliver,
bigger.
How about Josh Oliver?
Anybody but Brandon Powell. No offense.
That was just absurd.
It was very strange.
And then to do it twice. Crazy, just insane. Crazy.
That's the definition of insanity.
Right.
Doing the same thing over again, expecting a different result.
Exactly. So let's hear from the head coach going into this big matchup against the Detroit Lions.
Got off to a good start with our preparation with the extra day. We'll continue to push through the week, try to put together our best game plans of the season. Huge challenge, clearly, with Detroit coming in, playing great football. Dan's done an unbelievable job with that group, and they're playing really well in all 3 phases. Going to be a huge challenge, but it feels like we've been away from US Bank for a really long time, almost coming up on a month. So to get back home in front of our crowd and that home environment, I think will be huge. for our guys. And really kind of as we continue to work through the week, I can keep you guys posted on injuries, but we're working through it in some multiple spots, but expecting to hopefully have a few guys available to us this weekend.
And O'Connell also talked about Brian Flores' defense.
It's just a matter of this 60-minute opportunity, and can we play well? Can we play efficient? Can we have great communication? Can we get our alignments and assignments? And I do have a ton of confidence in the schemes and things that Flo and his staff put together, that if we can go out and execute those things and be consistent with our execution, I do feel very confident that we'll have success. But like I said, they're going to have success as an offense. They do every single week. But can you just make it a little harder on them? Can you make it, not as comfortable of a day to where they can really get it humming in both the run and pass phase?
One of the things that the coach and the players talked about this week, getting off to a good start, very important, and avoiding those first half turnovers. The Vikings are the league leaders in a negative category, 18 first half giveaways, and 2 of those last week with those Mullins interceptions in the second quarter. And that's something that has to stop and improve over these last 3 games if they're going to come out on top. TJ Hockenson, former Lion, was the number 1 pick of the Lions. Vikings got him in a great trade by Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, the GM, last year, and TJ has been one of the league leaders in receptions, a big part of this offense. Lions are not great against tight ends, so there could be really good opportunities for Hockenson this week, and he talked about facing his former team.
Yeah, I think it's just, it's another team, and we have a chance to be able to go out and play them this week, and that'll be a lot of fun. So, we got everything out in front of us that we've set out to do. So, we just got to control what we can control and go out and play as hard as we can.
The offense. You worked obviously closely with Ben Johnson there. What do you remember of your time with him?
Yeah, Ben was my tight ends coach for a couple of years, and he's an awesome dude. I loved Ben. Being able to work with him, and he was able to teach me a lot while I was there. He's got a good offensive mind, and he does a lot of things really well. So he fits really well with Jared too. And it's going to be a good challenge for our defense, but nothing they're not up for, by any means. So it's going to be a lot of fun on Sunday.
One thing, Jason, that I think the Vikings need to do this week, and I'm sure they are doing, closely study the game tape from Detroit's game in Baltimore back in Week 7 when the Ravens crushed the Lions 38-6. Now, in that game, I was watching that game, and I was amazed. The Ravens, they scored touchdowns on their first 4 drives. Mm-hmm. Lamar Jackson has receivers running wide open, and he's running for first downs, which now Nick Mullins is not Lamar Jackson, unfortunately for the Vikings. But study that tape because the Lions were up 28-0, and on defense, the Ravens were up 28-0, and on defense, the Ravens had held Detroit to no first downs until midway through the second quarter. So this game was over basically after about 20 minutes.
Jeez. Study
that tape. Study the tape of what the Bears and the Packers did recently to the Lions and getting wins over them. And so I think those are some of the keys. And the LA Chargers have had a bad year, but Justin Herbert, before he got hurt, put up 5 touchdown drives on his last 5 series against Detroit back in, I think it was week 11. And the Lions won 41-38 because the Chargers defense is horrendous this year. But that's another tape they can take a look at closely. Let's hear from Nick Mullins, the quarterback. And Nick, I'm not sure I trust you in a big game this week, but he did make some nice throws. But he made too many throws that were behind guys, had to make contorted catches, Jefferson, Hockenson, Oliver. But here's Nick Mullins. He's got another opportunity this week.
There was a lot of positives to take away. We moved the football. We scored points. Obviously, you have to protect the ball and play smart football because that's what wins. And you go from there. You take 1 week at a time. You watch the film. You learn from it. Learn that we still have a really good football team, and just time to put it together.
All right.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. Definitely, Nick. So I want to, before we hear from Jordan Hicks, as we said, very important to get him back as one of the leaders on defense. Let's hear from our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
There are trucks, then there's the truck, GMC Sierra, with available features like the V8 engine, the ultimate luxury interior, and of course, the available world's first 6-function multi-pro tailgate. GMC Sierra, not just any truck, the truck. GMC's continued commitment to professional-grade engineering is on full display at your local GMC dealer. Come take a test drive today and see for yourself. We are professional-grade GMC. Well-qualified buyers step up to GMC with 0.9% APR on 2023 Sierra light-duty models. Plus, no monthly payments until 2024. See your local GMC dealer today. Length of contract limited. Deferred monthly payments for 120 days. Excludes residents of Pennsylvania and Maine. Must finance with GM Financial. Down payment required at signing if applicable. Finance charges accrue from date of financing. Some customers will not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 12/4/23.
And here's Jordan Hicks, one of the Vikings leaders on defense, and looks like he's on his way back this week, which is good news for the defense.
You see the progression, right? How we've evolved, how we've continued to grow. I think that shows how special this defense is, the depth that we have. But sitting at home watching football is no fun compared to being out there. So, especially the way it's gone. So, very, very excited to be back out there. Yeah, nothing like it.
We're going to make our picks in a second here, Jason, but let's look around the league a little bit and some big games this weekend. And the biggest one is on Christmas night when the top two teams a top team in each conference meet. That's the 49ers and the Ravens will meet in San Francisco. I think the 49ers are the best team in the league when they have all their guys in the lineup, which they do right now. So I'm going to pick them in that game, but that should be an exciting game to watch. Miami and Dallas, two 10-4 teams meet in Miami. The Cowboys come off a dismal game at Buffalo, and Miami 6-1 at home. Cowboys 3-4 on the road. So I do like Miami. It looks like they're going to get Tyreek Hill back this week. That's a big game on Sunday. Jacksonville at Tampa Bay, two teams on top of their divisions based on tiebreakers, and so an important game there. And the Packers go to Carolina, who got their second win of the season over Atlanta.
Are we sure about that? Because I don't think anybody went to that game to see it for themselves.
Yeah,
we don't know for sure if that game even was played.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But
I know there was bad weather, but that was pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, but I'm not so sure that the Panthers can't do it again. I would pick the Packers, but Carolina has the third-ranked defense in the league, a little underrated. The Packers, it's kind of from the Vikings standpoint, they hope the Packers get beat, so they are definitely out of the playoff picture when they come here next week. So I'll go with Green Bay on that one. And the Vikings and the Detroit Lions, big game at home. Fans are going to bring the noise. O'Connell's been lobbying for that this week. It's, I think, obviously important for both teams. Detroit has a chance to win their first division title in 30 years. They're confident coming off a big win over Denver. The Vikings have to rebound from a tough loss in Cincinnati. It's just hard, Jason, to feel really good about the Vikings' chances the rest of the way to first of all, to win out and even necessarily to make the playoffs when they're in a season when they've had so many games that they've lost that they should have won. Mm-hmm. And those are the games that come back to haunt you. You say, if we just had beaten Tampa Bay or the Chargers or the Broncos or the Bears or the Bengals, and you add them up and wow, it's just tough. And then on top of the injuries they've had, and so many injuries this week, Detroit's a healthier team coming into this game. And so I think unless the Vikings just get a otherworldly performance from guys like Justin Jefferson and Danielle Hunter, I'm going to pick Detroit in a close game, 28-27. I kind of see a heartbreaker type game on Sunday.
What else is new
at US Bank Stadium? How you seeing it?
I actually totally unintentionally tipped my hand because I'm wearing Detroit Lions colors. I totally didn't mean to do that here on the YouTube channel. I did pick them 26-23 to win. I'm just not really confident right now in my quarterback situation. I think if Nick Mullins struggles, I would be totally fine if the Vikings wanted to give Jaron Hall a shot in this game. Really would. I thought there was maybe even opportunity after how that second half ended against the Bengals. A bit like, oh boy, are the Vikings maybe going to try to learn their lesson here, or maybe not have them come into the next half because of what happened with Josh Dobbs against the Raiders, but they kept him in, and obviously the game ended how it ended. And yeah, this defense, like I said earlier, it came back down to earth a little bit. It's going to need to be like it was against the Raiders or against the Bears if we're going to win this game. And I just don't know if the Vikings can reach that peak again as a defense. So I'm not very confident. I hope I'm wrong because, again, I want Vikings fans to be happy on Christmas Eve and actually enjoy that experience. But I am like you. I'm not very hopeful. I'm going to say 26-23 that the Lions will clinch the NFC North at US Bank Stadium.
Yeah,
sorry.
And I'm with you. I don't trust Nick Mullins either enough to pick them in this game. And I also don't trust the Vikings' young corners, especially if Flores doesn't give them help on a guy like St. Brown, that they need to double a guy like that. And when they're blitzing, then they're in single coverage a lot of times, and that's really dangerous. So, yeah, I think we're in agreement on that, but we do hope we're wrong.
Yes.
And we will be back on next Tuesday, not Monday, next Tuesday to break it all down. And that'll be with AJ will be back. And then on Thursday, Jason and I will be back to preview the border battle, Vikings and Packers. And the hope from the Vikings standpoint is they get a win against Detroit, and that game with Green Bay is extremely meaningful, which it would be in that situation. And in either case, it's still going to be an important game.
Of course.
So this has been Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday, occasionally on Tuesdays, as will be the case next week. During the Viking season, buy your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via links from the 1500 ESPN and Score North websites. This is Jeff Diamond with Jason Stormer. Everybody have a great Christmas, great holiday weekend. Stay safe, and we will talk to you next week after the Lions game.